Alright, so finally got the VDF version 2 TA05 on the bench. Wasn't sure when I was going to get a chance to start the build. Been pretty busy with work and whatnot, but I figured might as well get it done now because it won't happen for a while. So that's what we're building. Alright, so get everything out of the box. Everything's neatly packed away, should I say. Gotta love Tamiya kits for that stuff. Alright, so first is our carbon fiber chassis piece, suspension retainers, front and back, and then we have a servo retainer, or mounting point, should I say. So countersunk screw to the chassis, get those pieces in the front, same for the rear. Alright, servo mounts. So no need for thread lock yet, everything's in plastic, so we're good. Alright, so now for the rear diff, which should be a pretty simple one because it's a solid spool. So thread locker screws going into the spool because metal on metal, and we need that. Save you a lot of trouble in the long run. Alright, so final one. That's secure. Now to get the diff cups in there. Alright, diff cup and then a drive pin. Same thing on the opposite side. And here we require 3 shims on the left and 1 on the right. And then just insert the bearings. Now for the housing, here they say leave 3 spots inside. Or 3 gaps. That should give you the proper tension on your belt. But it's all adjustable afterwards. So to get our long belt, throw that in here. Get both of the halves on the diff pulley. And close it off with the top bulkhead. So 2 screws each side. Gets us secure. Alright, and next is the stabilizer bar or retainer. Screw that into the bulkhead. And now we have the aluminum brace, which ties into the carbon fiber chassis brace. Screw that in. And now for the ball ends, those are going to be on the closer mounting point to the inside of the bulkhead. Now the shock tower, 3 screws in the top, we're good there. And now to the outside, we're going to be installing one of the ball ends again. That's for the shocks. So 4 countersunk screws, and you get that mounted onto the chassis. Now for the front, I've never built a ball diff before, so this proved to be quite tedious. So we're going to get the half spool, and we have a big retainer, or washer should I say, and the pulley sits on top. Dropping pieces everywhere here. Alright, and now just drop the balls in. Hopefully they land in place. If not, move them around. And now we have some diff grease on there. Next retainer. Line ourselves up. Alright, so now we have a long screw going straight across. And another plastic nut piece that sits inside the diff cup. So I'm going to tighten that. Now for the medium belt. And same as the rear, you have 3 little gaps in the adjustments for the pulley retainer. You get the bulkhead. You can find that. Alright. Always missing something. Alright, so have our bearings. And now the diff retainer, top of the bulkhead, both sides. And as we did for the rear, 4 screws in the top is going to lock it into place. hardware here. Next going to be the stabilizer bar. Or sorry, that's going to be the mounting bracket for that center brace. And there's a sway bar connector. 2 screws. And shock towers. Once we're done there, we're installing those ball ends. So 2 on the inside, or the inside mounting position of the bulkhead. And then the other 2 are going to be for the shock towers. Should install that before putting the shock tower on. Still managed to get it through. Alright, so 4 countersunk screws. Get that secured to the chassis. Alright, so now we're getting some aluminum bits. Get all our hardware out. Alright, so this one here, what we'll be building is the motor mount. So again, going metal to metal, so we're going to use the supplied thread lock. We mount the one side to the chassis, 2 screws, countersunk on the bottom is going to secure that in there. Dropping hardware again. Alright, so we got that in there. Now we have 3 posts going to be mounted into the motor mount. 2 at the top and 1 to the side. And now we have the second piece of the motor mount. That's where the pinion's going to come out of. Alright, so now finish that last piece off here with the brace from the motor mount to the front diff. And the same for the rear. It's going to be a longer piece. The battery's going to scooch underneath. 2 screws both sides. Now I'm going to start working on the suspension pieces. So 2 screws to mount the servo lead into the belt crank. Alright, so now for the ball ends, 1 at the top, 1 underneath, and then the one for the servo arm. The second one will only have the ball ends, will not need the servo arm on it. It's only going to be on the left of the chassis. So countersunk screw, aluminum post, same thing on the opposite side. And now the belt crank's on bearing, so it just slides in and smooth. Alright, so cap head screw on both sides and hold that in place. Alright, so now the thing that I find the hardest or the tedious to build is the links. Snap that into place here. So we have the link coming across from the belt crank. Alright. Get all the hardware in place. Now I'm going to be working on the pulley system. So the first pulley will be held on with a drive pin, spacer, and then we have a bearing that's going to push through the motor mount. And then we have another pulley on the inside that has a grub screw, which is what ties everything together here. Alright. So that's nice and smooth. Now onto the rear, which is what the spur is going to mount to. So grub screw, 2 screws onto that pulley, which is going to hold on the spur to the pulley, which is going to be our middle belt. So an 18 tooth to an 18 tooth. Now on the opposite side will be the other 18 tooth pulley that's going to the rear belt. Alright, so now we have, I think it's a 12 mil screw, 2 bearings, 2 washers, and that's what we're going to use for a belt tensioner. That's going to screw on the rear of the bulkhead, which is going to lift up the belt just enough to clear that battery. Alright, so mount that on there. Get all the clearance, and the belt's nice and snug. Alright, so the rear A-arms, quite easy. You have the hinge pin, plastic grommet on the end. Alright, and there's our ball end, which the shock's going to mount to. So plastic grease on both sides. Alright, so get the other side ready. And then we're going to lock that in with the suspension brace. 2 countersunk screws at the bottom. Locks it in. And now to build the CVDs. So we have the center insert, a drive pin, and then a grub screw is going to hold all that together. Thread lock into that because it will come apart. Alright, so that's done. We're just going to put the ball end on the knuckle, bearing, CVD, and then we're going to connect that to the A-arm with another hinge pin. And that's all held together with 1 grub screw, keeps that hinge pin from sliding out. Alright, so I went ahead and finished both sides. Mount the front the same way, so hinge pin and the A-arm. Get both sides going, and then we have the suspension brace that ties everything together. So we're locked into place. So ball in for the shocks on the A-arms. And now for the front C-hubs and the steering knuckles. Alright, so gather all the hardware. Get the CVD and the bearings in the knuckle. Slide that through the C-hub. Alright, so ball head at the top is going to tie that in, which is what we're going to mount the link to, which gives us our camber adjustment. Alright, throw that into place, hinge pin, grub screw to hold that together. And we're good to go. Snap on the steering links. Alright, so grab the hex on there. So now for the fun part of the build, the shocks. This is pretty tedious because you got to take your time. If not, you'll know it later. You have air bubbles in your shocks and it doesn't work. Alright, so we're going to get all our mounting pieces here. Alright, so E-clip, the piston, another E-clip. Throw that inside the shock body. And at the bottom we have a retainer and a rubber grommet, which acts as a seal. Put in the ball end cap at the bottom. Fill it up with oil. Compress it a few times. You gotta wait for all the air bubbles to feed through. And now you get to add the bladder and the top of the shock. Alright, the coil and the coil retainer. Alright, so finish those up off camera. Just gonna snap them onto the chassis now. Front and back. Don't worry about all the height adjustments afterwards for now as you get through the build here. Alright, so we're going to build the small links that are going from the bell crank to the steering knuckle itself. Snap those on both sides. Now, on for the body posts. For now, anyways, I'm not sure if I'm even going to run them. I might even go with a stealth mount route, but for now, I'm just going to get them on there. So we have 1 screw that's going to hold on the body post on each side. Right. There's 1. And now for number 2. Alright. The other ones will mount down to the bottom of the bumper for the front mounts. Then we have 3 countersunk screws. I'm going to hold that to the chassis. Foam bumper slides on, and the top retaining piece. 2 screws hold that together. Alright. And now for the battery retainers. So it's a 1 carbon fiber piece with 3 posts. Screw those on, get some thread lock on there. And now for the post onto the chassis. And the battery retainer is just going to slip over that. And we're done. Move this all to the side so we can get a good look at this chassis here. So as always, my builds are fast. It's not a tutorial. It's more of an overview of what I'm doing in time lapse. Once I'm done, I get you guys a close-up look. Very nice, very clean. Happy with the build. Can't say I've ever been disappointed in a Tamiya build. They always go together great. And this being a higher end kit that I'm accustomed to building, it was even easier. Alright, so get some tires on there, and then we'll be able to set it down on the table. Get a good look at it. Anyways, finish that up off camera. Right, so there we are. Tires mounted. Everything's complete. Next video we'll be installing some electronics and hopefully have it out drifting by the weekend. So guys, thanks for watching. Please thumbs up and subscribe.